the same time, there's been some major news in the international sphere. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. Middle East was an absolute chaos yesterday, as rightfully summed up here. There was an attack on a U.S. ship by Yemen's Houthis. The U.S. intercepted 2 attacks in the Red Sea. Israel had strikes in Gaza. There was a stabbing and a car ramming near Tel Aviv in a terrorist attack. There was an IRGC attack in Iraq, an IRGC attack in Syria, the IRGC being a paramilitary organization under the control of the Iranian Ayatollah. And they say even for Middle East, this is beyond the usual instability, which I think is actually a pretty good way of putting it. Let's start with the first part. Let's put this up there on the screen. The Houthi rebels struck a U.S.-flagged ship off of the coast of Yemen in the Gulf of Aden. That was directly after the strikes by the Biden administration on Houthi infrastructure. CENTCOM, which is the U.S. military command in charge of the region, elaborated a little bit on this, if we can go to the next one. And they say that the Iranian-backed Houthi militants fired an anti-ship ballistic missile from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen and struck the Gibraltar Eagle, a Marshall Islands-flagged U.S.-owned and operated container ship. The ship reported no injuries or significant damage. But Ryan, to me, the big headline out of that is they still attacked U.S. flagship after they attacked the U.S. Navy ship with a pretty significant military technology. That's a signal. And it's a signal, too, because this is, to my knowledge, one of the first U.S. flag, or at least U.S.-owned and operated ships that's actually come under attack, not some Panamanian vessel or an Israeli vessel like they'd previously gone after. So what's your initial reaction?
Yeah, and the Houthis, who really are the de facto, though not legally recognized government of Yemen, have said that they are going to continue this blockade until Israel stops its bombing campaign and its incursion into Gaza. Like that, those are the conditions that they have put up. U.S. responded by bombing Yemen in response. I saw somebody, and I think we have this element later, saying, I guess the Houthis haven't gotten the message. No, the Houthis have gotten the message. Like Yemen has gotten the message.
We have it next. We can put it up there if people want.
Yeah, the United States.
That's Admiral Stavridis, just so everybody knows. He's actually the former commander of NATO forces. He says that the good news is that no one was injured in this attack by the Houthis. The bad news is they probably have not gotten the message to cease and desist. Probably going to require additional military strikes to discourage them. Never thought of that.
Yeah, and more cowbell. So the Obama administration spent most of its time drone striking Yemen.
Yes, for years.
After the war broke out, the U.S. gave every weapon that the United Arab Emirates or Saudi could ask for in their war against the Houthis. That lasted about 7 years. Basically, they've been bombing them for years and years and years and years. The Houthis have only gotten stronger. And the Houthis have their own kind of regional and also domestic interests at play here. I see some people portraying this as like, what do you guys think, that these are like, this is good and evil and these are the Boy Scouts? No, like they have had more than a year of cessation of hostilities, which
with the Saudis,
which has meant that they have had to govern, and governing is much easier sometimes when you have kind of the civilian population behind you involved in some type of external conflict. So it actually helps them domestically, helps them regionally. If you like. The polls around the entire Middle East show the Houthis are now like by far the most popular force in the area. So yeah, a few more military strikes from the U.S. They're not going to get the message. They understand what we want.
What concerns me, Emily, is that this comes after the tragic incident involving Navy SEALs that we are getting actually some more detail. I'm curious to your reaction. Just literally came out this morning. It appears the U.S. military has finally confirmed that there were Iranian warheads that were en route to Yemen, and American military personnel, including U.S. Navy SEALs, boarded in a shipboarding mission off the coast of Somalia last week, sought to disrupt that weapons resupply of Yemen, of which was specifically then being used in this war. Krystal and I have described this as kind of the first actual U.S. I don't want to say casualties out of respect to the families. These guys remain missing, lost at sea now for 3 full days.
Congressman Eli Crane posted on his Facebook last night, if you saw this.
No, I didn't see
Rest in peace, brothers. And he's a former Navy SEAL himself, member of Congress. They have not confirmed.
There you go.
But
We'll let the Pentagon speak to what the official
from the
notification.
sources I'm hearing is that everyone in that world understands them to have passed.
Yeah, it's very sad, so anyway, we got 2 U.S. Navy SEALs officially missing in action at sea right now, currently involved in this mission. John Kirby stopped at distance. He said this has nothing to do with the strikes in Yemen, even though they were literally involved, here in Yemen. So this could be, kind of a jump-off point for at least for the U.S. public. Anytime 2 U.S. Navy SEALs end up missing in some sort of daring raid in the middle, from what I'm reading here, we're talking about boarding like some unstable dhow in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of warheads and all this other stuff on it. Obviously, they train for this all the time, but it's recognized as an extraordinarily risky mission. Do you think this could raise, possibly like anti-war energy? Because this is one of those where it's really the first time, not only in terms of military action on Yemen, but now we've got U.S. military personnel, service members, actually directly involved in combat here.
This might seem like a weird word to use. I find it creepy, though, how little media coverage there has been of these casualties.
Yeah.
I mean, it is creepy how serious and substantive of an issue it is, and how quiet the media has been about what happened. And I'm not saying they should be out there banging the war drums, but I think actually we're starting to feel an echo of how the Biden administration has prosecuted the war in Ukraine in the Middle East, which is that publicly and in their posturing, they're all in. Ukraine is the battle for civilization, is the most important thing in the world. And you have a lot of sentiment in the United States that doesn't reflect that. And so what they try to do is just sort of slow walk the war. So they'll give you, the weapons, but they'll really hem and haw about it. And they'll pretend that this is a giant sacrifice for the Biden administration. You're like, oh, we went to the mat, we got you more weapons. And then in the Middle East, this is from Dr. Parsi, Trina Parsi, he says, all the Houthis need to do is try. That is enough to sustain a de facto shipping blockade. Western commercial vessels will simply not risk moving their ships through those waters, not in spite of President Joe Biden's military strikes, but because of them. And so again, if your strategy in the Middle East is to do these strikes, and we all know that the Houthis, to Ryan's point, have got the message. We don't know that. So what are you going to do? Are you going to half-ass it? Are you going to full-ass it? The Biden administration is just kind of in between both of those options, trying to bide time until they can, sort of massage the public and figure out what they're doing. And in Ukraine, they've been doing this literally for years now.
Yeah, this is very dangerous, And in terms of the Houthi statement, we have some of this that we can put up there. They say that, they're very long and loquacious, I guess is an easy way to say it. The TLDR of this very, very long statement is the Yemeni armed forces continue to carry out their military operations and impose the decision to prevent Israeli navigation in the Arab and Red Sea until the aggression stops and the siege of the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted. So basically, the center of gravity for this particular conflict and more is going to be what the hell is going on in Gaza, not anywhere else. There is, though, a bleeding out, continuing of the conflict. There was a major panic here in Washington just yesterday evening as strikes were being reported in the city of Erbil in Iraq. Erbil is one of actually the safest cities in Iraq. It's in the northern part in Kurdistan. And we saw Iranian ballistic missiles rain down on the city. Initial reports, Ryan, were that the U.S. consulate was actually targeted. It appears that is not true. U.S. officials have now confirmed that no U.S. Actual facility was targeted, but it appears that it might have actually been a Mossad facility. So we have some video that we can play here showing some of the strikes. I mean, this is some crazy stuff there, people. I mean, it's in the middle of the night there, and you could see there were other, things coming out of missiles just coming through the sky, flying there, and then blowing up right in the middle of the city. Some casualties initially reported. Obviously, though, if it was a spy agency, the Israelis, they're not exactly going to confirm anything. But what did you make of this, Ryan? Because to me, it's escalatory only in this. The Mossad place, surprisingly, very close to the U.S. consulate. People were afraid that the U.S. consulate itself was going to get blown up. But Erbil is not a city at war. I mean, they're not used to ballistic missiles coming from Iran directly acknowledged, plopping down in the middle. Imagine if that happened.
Well, in Saagar, we are not a country at war either.
Yeah,
Keep that in mind.
Well, unfortunately.
And Iraq has recalled its ambassador from Iran in protests because they're like, hey, look, I know that this is not about us, but
but you can't just bomb the country. Yeah.
So, and the way that Parsi and others have said it is that going after, let's say the reports are accurate that it was a Mossad facility, they know that this is right near the U.S. consulate, and the shockwaves hit, were felt over there.
Yes.
Like it was.
They initially thought it was an attempted strike on the consulate. It was that close.
And it's extraordinarily risky because if you're off by a couple hundred meters or whatever, then you've hit the U.S. consulate. And so it is, Khomeini is understood to be extraordinarily risk averse. Yet the bombing at Soleimani's funeral, coupled with the killing of the IRGC general in Syria, coupled with the attacks on the Hamas and Hezbollah leaders in Beirut, have created so much domestic pressure that even risk-averse Khomeini is sees that he needs to do something aggressive. And so the shot at the Mossad building so close to the consulate, is a ratcheting up. When they attacked Syria, that was going after ISIS. And the risk aversion comes in there too, because there's two ways to go after ISIS. Afghanistan, which is where probably a lot of the strike was planned from, or in Syria. Syria is the more passive way, because that's further away. You go after Afghanistan, you might unleash a little bit more of a response from ISIS or even the Taliban that Khomeini doesn't want. But you've seen the State Department and kind of its allies saying, "Oh boy, looks like we're getting closer to being drawn into another war," as if it's just this passive gravitational pull thing. It's like
worst of both worlds.
This is when they attacked Yemen. Everybody could forecast that Iran is then going to respond either through its militias or directly through the IRGC.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. So this attempt to de-escalate through escalating is absurd, but also not working.
I would put it this way. If it was just, let's say the Houthis out of nowhere start shooting at ships. Okay, bomb them, right? But that's not what's happening here. This is about Israel. So it's like, well, we got to deal with the situation in Israel. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going some tit for tat. And now, lo and behold, as you put it very well, Creepy, in terms of the story, it's kind of like when those 4, was it Green Berets, got killed in Niger? And everyone was like, wait, what the hell is going on in Niger? They're like, what happened here? And then the Pentagon story came out, and it was, let me tell you this, bullshit. It was complete BS. The families of those involved continue to press. There's video that directly undercuts what they said. It was a boondoggle of epic proportions that probably goes all the way up to the Pentagon for denied air support and all this other stuff. There's YouTube videos and all that stuff. You can go watch about it. I suspect something similar is happening here. We don't even get the official narrative about guys lost at sea until days later. And then we have to think about the strategic mission. You got a piddly little dhow in the middle of the ocean. They're shipping weapons from Iran to Yemen. This is not something that we ever particularly cared about. Like we did, maybe we'll blockade, etc. But you don't put American lives at risk. And then all of a sudden, somebody somewhere, probably the White House, greenlights it, and they say, yeah, let's disrupt it a little bit. And now, how do you look these people's families in the face and be like, what do they, give their lives if they go? I pray that they were found. I pray that. That said, let's accept reality about where things are right now, and let's just think about that counterfactual in which they may eventually be declared missing or dead. How do you look them families and say, for what? So that Israel can continue to assault on Gaza? It's like, I thought that no wars for Israel used to be a meme. And now it's reality. It seems to literally be reality. Anyway, so we wanted to lay out some of the chaos that's happened in the Middle East there.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.